I found my son huddled near our garage this morning, his arms wrapped tightly around his knees, his breathing uneven. Tears glistened behind his glasses. Looming over him was a woman in a sharp blazer, clutching a clipboard like it was a badge of authority. Her glare was icy, and when she pointed at me, her voice cut across the lawn. "Your boy's banned," she declared. "He's a threat to the neighborhood." The absurdity of her words hit me hard, but what infuriated me more was her invocation of the HOA's name, as if it carried the weight of a high court. I looked at my trembling son and strode toward her, my only thought, who does she think she is? "My name is David Harper. I've lived in Willow Creek Estates for 2 years, a gated community on the edge of a mid-sized American city, nestled among tall oaks and a lake locals cherish as an ecological gem. My son Ethan is 15. He has cerebral palsy and mild autism, navigating life with quiet grit, a specialized walker, and a spirit that refuses to be dimmed. Yet there he was, shaken to his core by a self-righteous neighbor. This wasn't just any neighbor, it was Susan, the newly elected HOA president, wielding her title like it granted her absolute power. I reached Ethan, my heart racing. He looked up, pale, and whispered, "Dad, she said I can't use the sidewalk anymore. I'm non-compliant." Before I could process that, Susan thrust her clipboard toward me, its HOA emblem gleaming like it was sacred. "Your son's DVIC is damaging our decorative sidewalks," she snapped. "HOA rules prohibit destruction of shared property." I wanted to unleash my anger, but I held back. My mind raced. Why target my disabled son? What gives her the right to ban him from a public path? Susan stepped closer, her neat brunette ponytail bobbing, her polished nails tapping the clipboard. "I've documented violations, Mr. Harper. The board has decided his equipment is destructive. This is your only warning, fix it, or he's barred from common areas." I was speechless. A walker causing damage? She shoved a letter at me, stamped with an official-looking HOA seal. "Read it carefully," she barked. "And don't bother whining to the city. We're tight with the zoning office, they back our authority." Ethan's shoulders shook. I knelt, placed a hand on his back and said softly, "You're okay. I've got you." I helped him inside, my mind a storm of questions. Why this attack? Did she really believe she could ban a disabled child from the sidewalks? And how far would she go? Inside, I settled Ethan on the couch. He'd scraped his knee on the concrete, a bruise blooming under his jeans. My wife, Laura, a doctor, was at the hospital for her early shift. I took a deep breath to steady myself. I hadn't told Susan that I'm a federal judge. I keep that private in the neighborhood. Anonymity is a shield in my line of work, especially against people with petty grudges or inflated egos. But seeing Ethan's distress, something in me shifted. She was messing with the wrong family. Once Ethan calmed down, insisting he was just tired, I grabbed Susan's letter. It dripped with arrogance, citing obscure HOA rules about preserving sidewalk, aesthetic integrity, and avoiding excessive wear. The kicker: residents with mobility devices causing VY sidewalks could be restricted from common areas, with fines for non-compliance. It was aimed squarely at Ethan's walker wheels. Who writes rules like this? I wondered. How could anyone justify them? We'd lived here 2 years without issue under the previous HOA president, Mrs. Ellis, who was kind and reasonable. But Susan swept in months ago on a platform of reform. Rumors swirled about her plans to elevate the neighborhood: fancier gates, stricter house colors, even uniforms for security. I dismissed it as suburban gossip, but now I saw the truth. I called my neighbor, Tom, a decade-long resident. "Let me guess," he said. "Susan hit you with some nonsense violation." I explained the sidewalk ordeal. He sighed. "She's on a power trip. She's cozy with the zoning commissioner, Bradley, who owns a contracting firm. They're pushing renovations everywhere. Word is, they want to get part of the nature trail by the lake for a private dock." My stomach churned. That trail was Ethan's haven, where he'd listen to birdsong to unwind. If Susan destroyed it, it'd crush him and many others who loved it. I thanked Tom and stared at my reflection, tall, graying, worry lines deeper than last year. I'm used to handling complex federal cases, fraud, environmental dispute, but I keep my work separate from home. Now those worlds were colliding. Should I reveal my job to the HOA or fight quietly? The father in me wanted to protect Ethan fast. The judge knew arrogance like Susan's sometimes needed the law's full weight. Outside, I studied the sidewalk. Tiny scratches from strollers and bikes were VY Cybele, but Ethan's walker marks? Barely noticeable. Then a white SUV rolled by. Susan leaned out while VYing her clipboard. Property inspection, she called. Expect more notices. Have a nice day or not. She sped off, Leah VYing me fuming. That night, Ethan sketched a sparrow he'd seen, his hands trembling slightly. Dad, he asked, am I really banned from outside? My chest tightened. No one can take that from you, I vowed. I plan to gather EVY Denke, check local laws and confront the HOA at their next meeting, hoping reason would win. But Susan escalated. The next day, a notice appeared on our door, banning Ethan from all common areas, sidewalks, clubhouse, pool, claiming his walker's wheels and custom handle were hazardous. It was discrimination, possibly illegal under the Americans with Disabilities Act ADA. Laura, home from her shift, was leave VYD. They can't do this, she said. We should call the city's ADA office. I nodded but had another plan. Trust me, I said, my voice calm but resolute, the tone I use in court. I spent days researching HOA bylaws, local ordinances, and federal protections. Willow Creek sat near a lake with partial federal oversight for migratory birds. The nature trails land was tied to a federal grant, so Susan's dock plan might violate environmental law. Meanwhile, she kept pushing. She circulated a petition about Ethan's property damage and spread rumors his walker was unsafe. Some neighbors bought her lies, others, like Tom, saw through her. One morning, a drone buzzed over our yard, its camera glinting. Furious, I confronted Susan and her HOA allies operating it. Just documenting compliance, she smirked. I nearly mentioned the Fourth Amendment but held back. Let them dig their hole. Ethan tried to stay strong but felt self-conscious venturing out. I refused to let him hide, so we walked the block together, ignoring judgmental stares. Why do they hate me? He asked softly. They don't, I said. They're just misled. Inside, I burned with rage. Things worsened when the zoning department sent a letter citing illegal structures, our backyard ramp for Ethan's access signed by Commissioner Bradley. Tom was right, Susan and Bradley were colluding. The threat was clear, comply or face bureaucratic hell. Enough was enough. I'd skipped the last HOA meeting due to work, but I marked the next one in red. I gathered EVY Denke, videos showing Ethan's walker caused no real damage, photos of our safe ramp, and notes on the lake's protections. Laura, usually reserved, insisted on coming. They can't ignore how wrong this is, she said. She recruited a friend, an occupational therapist, to explain mobility aids. I mentally prepped a lawsuit if they didn't back down, we'd see them in federal court. The HOA meeting was packed. Susan stood up front, flanked by supporters in matching green shirts, her expression smug. A hush fell as we entered, Ethan beside me, Laura and Tom behind. Susan droned about paint codes and mailbox rules, then zeroed in on us, accusing Ethan of consistent sidewalk damage and justifying his ban for the community's well-being. Her words were polished, but her intent was clear. Ethan was a problem. I stood, voice steady, citing the ADA local codes allowing accessibility ramps, and how her rules violate federal law. Susan tried to interrupt, but I pressed on. You're targeting a disabled child, I said. No bylaw trumps federal protections. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the room. Susan's ally, a wiry man, suggested a compromise, but she doubled down. We're by the book, she snapped. If you don't like it, talk to Bradley, he's already flagged your ramp. She thought she was untouchable. Laura spoke next, her voice trembling. This is harassment. You're hurting a boy who just wants to move safely. Susan rolled her eyes. Tom nodded at my it was time. I looked at Susan. You want to talk authority? I asked. She smirked. I've spent years presiding over federal cases, including disability and environmental ones, I said evenly. If you want to test your authority, go ahead. Her jaw dropped. Whispers spread. A judge. Seriously? Susan stammered, that's irrelevant. I continued, your ADA violations in lake development plans could trigger federal scrutiny. Her allies paled. One muttered, Bradley never mentioned environmental rules. Susan lashed out, shouting she wouldn't be intimidated and suggesting we leave if we couldn't follow rules. Tom stood. No, Susan, you might need to go if you keep bullying families. The meeting dissolved into chaos. Susan stormed out, neighbors apologizing to us as others slipped away. I felt relief but knew people like Susan rarely quit, they escalate. Sure enough, Bradley showed up at our door days later, offering to smooth things over, but hinting life could get tough if I pursued legal action. I mentioned his contracting business and potential conflicts of interest. He left quickly. For a bit, things calmed. Susan stopped patrolling, drones vanished, and Ethan walked more confidently. But then Tom overheard Susan and Bradley plotting to frame Ethan for vandalizing the pool. I confronted security at the clubhouse, where Susan claimed Ethan's walker scratched pool tiles and impossible lie. "You're lying," I said, barely containing my fury. "And I'll prove it." That day, I filed a complaint with the state attorney general, detailing the HOA's discrimination, Bradley's corruption, and their intimidation. I also sought a federal injunction to lift Ethan's ban. I emailed Susan the filings. She left a voicemail demanding I withdraw or face consequences. I saved it more evy denke. Ethan overheard some of this and said, "Maybe we should move." My heart broke. "We don't run from bullies," I told him. "We fight." Weeks later, in federal court, our attorney, Sarah Grant, presented our case, the HOA's discriminatory rules, Bradley's conflicts, and Susan's threats. Susan's lawyer was unprepared, stumbling as Sarah played her voicemail. The judge, a colleague I knew socially, asked Susan if the HOA condoned threatening residents. She floundered. He granted the injunction, lifting Ethan's ban and ordering the HOA to stop discriminatory enforcement. He also suggested probing Susan and Bradley's zoning ties. Outside, Laura hugged me, tears in her eyes. Ethan grinned shyly as supportive neighbors clapped. Susan tried a final HOA meeting to save face, barring me from attending, but her power was gone. Residents demanded transparency, and a city ethics probe into her and Bradley's dealings surfaced. Bradley resigned soon after, facing audits for bid rigging. Susan clung to her role but lost a no-confidence vote. A new president, Mr. Carter, apologized to us, and the HOA review set its rules to prioritize accessibility. The neighborhood healed. Fines stopped, guards vanished, and Ethan walked freely. I joined an accessibility committee to prevent another Susan. At a lakeside ceremony, we planted a tree for Unity. Ethan helped dig, smiling as neighbors apologized for their silence. Susan vanished after selling her house, leaving a bitter note blaming me. I felt a flicker of pity but no regret. She brought this on herself. A year later, Ethan and I walked the smooth sidewalks, a new sign at the clubhouse reading, "All welcome accessibility matters." He grinned. "I like it here now, Dad." I ruffled his hair. "Me too." Somewhere, Susan might still resent me. But her story ended when she targeted a disabled child and defied the law. Willow Creek learned that no tyrant, however loud, could outlast a family's resolve, a community's unity, and the law's justice. Ethan's courage became our heartbeat, proof that dignity can't be banned.